There's a moment every man remembers. The moment he realizes that forgiveness won't fix what was broken. She betrayed you, not just with actions, but with the quiet decision to stop respecting your soul. And the world tells you to forgive, to let go, to move on, to be the bigger man. But here's the truth no one tells you. Forgiveness in the wrong hands becomes self-betrayal. It's how men lose their fire, how they start confusing kindness with weakness. Because when a woman betrays you, it's not just trust that dies. It's your sense of safety in your own judgment. And when you forgive her without truth, you teach her that your pain is negotiable. Society calls it virtue. But what it really is emotional disarmament, a way to make men easier to control, to keep them quiet, guilty, and endlessly understanding. You're not cruel for refusing forgiveness. You're aware. You've simply learned that peace isn't built on denial. It's built on boundaries. And once a man understands that, he stops apologizing for protecting his soul. Most men are raised to believe that love survives everything, that patience, forgiveness, and sacrifice are the foundations of strength. So when betrayal enters their life, they turn it inward, blaming themselves for not being enough, for not seeing the signs, for still wanting to believe in the good within her. That's how the illusion begins. You convince yourself it was just a mistake. You replay every memory, searching for proof that what you shared was real. You tell yourself she didn't mean it, that maybe she was confused, that maybe love can heal the wound she caused. But deep down you feel it, that quiet fracture, the moment trust became performance. And what hurts the most isn't her betrayal. It's the realization that she could look into your eyes, pretend to care, and still choose to destroy what you built together. Society won't let you say that out loud, because the modern world punishes male pain. It tells men to understand, to be emotionally mature, to forgive for their own peace. But peace doesn't come from pretending. It comes from facing reality without mercy. The truth is, many women today are taught to prioritize freedom over loyalty, to chase validation, not depth, to treat relationships like experiences, temporary stages in their own self-discovery. And when she betrays you, it's not always out of hatred. Sometimes it's out of emptiness, a craving to feel powerful again, to rewrite her own story, even if it means erasing yours. You see it everywhere now. Wives who reinvent themselves overnight, partners who outgrow the very men who stood by them. A culture that celebrates leaving more than staying, as if loyalty is a prison and detachment is enlightenment. She posts quotes about healing while you sit in silence, dissecting every word she said before she left. She talks about energy, growth, and choosing herself. But what she really chose was escape from accountability, from guilt, from the mirror of your stability that exposed her chaos. And you, the man she left behind, you start doubting your worth. You question your instincts, your masculinity, your very ability to love again. You start believing that maybe she was right to leave. That's how deep the illusion runs. It convinces men that betrayal is normal. That pain is just another phase. That closure must come from you, not from truth. But betrayal is not a lesson in empathy. It's a revelation of character. And when you keep forgiving what destroys you, you become part of the system that rewards deceit. Look closer at how the world reacts to male heartbreak. They mock it. They label it weakness. They say, "Move on," as if grieving means you failed at being a man. But what they don't understand is that betrayal changes something inside you permanently. It's not just about love. It's about how reality shifts, how you stop seeing the world as safe, how your kindness turns cautious, how your heart starts negotiating trust with logic. This is the quiet war men fight, between their nature to protect and their need to feel safe, between wanting to rebuild and knowing that rebuilding might mean erasing parts of themselves. And here's the darkest part. Most men never speak of it. They bury it under silence, under productivity, under the illusion of being fine. Because the world doesn't know what to do with a man who's been betrayed. So they call his awareness bitterness, his boundaries ego, his caution toxicity. But it's not bitterness. It's awakening, the kind that burns everything false and leaves behind only what's real. Because once you see betrayal for what it truly is, you can never unsee it. You can never return to the version of yourself who believed that love alone could fix what truth exposed. And that is the beginning of a man's real education. It doesn't just happen by chance. This cycle where men give endlessly and women drift away the moment reality sets in. It's not an accident. It's a design. A cultural system built quietly over decades, teaching men and women completely different meanings of love. Men are raised on endurance to hold, to protect, to fix, while women are raised on fulfillment, to seek, to feel, to change. So when they meet, he sees loyalty as love, and she sees emotion as movement. He builds a home. She searches for herself inside it, and when that search turns into restlessness, the world whispers to her, "You deserve more." It doesn't matter what she already has. The system feeds on dissatisfaction, because a woman who stays content doesn't consume. She doesn't buy the next version of herself. She doesn't chase validation through reinvention. You can see it everywhere in media, in advertising, in the silent messaging of culture. It tells her that maturity means freedom from attachment, that she's strong when she leaves, and naive when she forgives. But here's the quiet trick. This system doesn't empower her. It isolates her. It convinces her that loyalty is oppression, that love is limitation, and that the only truth worth following is her own mood. And it convinces him, the man, that his pain is weakness, that being betrayed is a sign he's outdated, that his devotion is just another form of control. So both lose. Both become products of an invisible design that feeds on the breakdown of connection. It's not about people. It's about patterns. When a culture rewards the chase more than the keeping, betrayal becomes fashionable. When movies glorify self-liberation over sacrifice, commitment becomes a burden. And underneath it all, there's profit. Every broken home creates new markets, new apartments, new apps, new therapy sessions, new identities. A lonely man works harder. A lonely woman spends more. The system wins every time a relationship collapses. Even psychology has been reshaped to fit the script. It preaches self-love as separation. It sells healing as detachment. It turns boundaries into walls so high that no real intimacy survives. But the truth runs deeper than marketing. It's psychological conditioning. Generations taught to fear stillness, to believe that peace means stagnation, that the absence of chaos is the absence of growth. So when a relationship finally slows down, when love becomes routine, she feels trapped. Because the system taught her to equate calm with boredom, and he feels unseen because the system taught him that expressing pain makes him less of a man. It's a perfect imbalance. He suppresses, she escapes, he forgives, she reinvents, he builds, she outgrows. And all of it, every misunderstanding, every collapse, every quiet heartbreak is the result of a culture that replaced wisdom with slogans. 3 lines that sound like freedom but function like commands. Commands that keep people chasing fulfillment that never stays. This is why betrayal feels so familiar now. It's no longer shocking. It's expected. A man gets hurt. A woman finds herself. And the story continues like it's part of progress. But behind this illusion of progress lies a quiet truth. We've built a world where breaking bonds feels easier than facing our own reflection, where accountability feels like cruelty and commitment feels like confinement. The system doesn't need villains. It just needs confusion because confused people don't trust their instincts. They outsource their morality to trends, their self-worth to validation, their sense of purpose to whatever promises freedom. And so betrayal becomes not just personal, but structural. It's baked into how we live, how we love, how we define success. A man who loses his loyalty is called reckless. A woman who loses hers is called brave. That's how deep the programming runs. And until you see that, until you understand that this imbalance isn't random but designed, you'll keep mistaking her betrayal as an individual act of cruelty. When in truth, it's the natural outcome of a culture that no longer honors connection, only self-preservation. The cost of this illusion is silent. It doesn't explode, it dissolves. It starts in the mirror, where a man no longer recognizes the person staring back at him. His eyes still open every morning, but something inside refuses to rise. He carries the weight of betrayal like a ghost on his shoulders, invisible but heavy. He doesn't cry for her anymore. He grieves for the version of himself he lost in trying to keep her. Every memory turns into a question. Every promise echoes like a lie whispered through glass. He walks through life wearing a mask, a calm expression covering a battlefield, smiling when spoken to, nodding when told he'll find someone better. But deep down, he knows it was never about finding another. It was about finding himself again. Yet that self feels buried under years of conditioning, buried under a culture that told him, "Be strong," when what he really needed was to be understood. The emotional cost is not the loss of love, is the loss of innocence. That sacred belief that love once given purely will be returned the same way. Now every touch feels temporary, every connection conditional. He begins to doubt his own instincts. He second-guesses kindness, questions loyalty, and fears the peace that once grounded him. This is how the system wins. Not by breaking his body, but by corrupting his trust, by turning his heart into armor, his empathy into suspicion. And while the world calls it healing, what he's really doing is surviving. There's a difference. Healing restores. Survival endures. He builds walls, not to keep people out, but to protect what little still feels real inside him. And behind those walls, he learns the hardest truth. That forgiveness isn't always noble. Sometimes it's a disguise, a way to avoid facing how deeply the wound still burns. The cost of betrayal isn't measured in tears or time. It's measured in the distance between who he was and who he's forced to become. Carlong once said, "People don't have ideas. Ideas have people." And nowhere is that more visible than in love and betrayal. When a man forgives a woman who has betrayed him, he isn't always choosing compassion. Sometimes he's surrendering to an idea, the illusion that forgiveness equals strength. But not all forgiveness is born from healing. Some forgiveness is born from fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of appearing cruel. Fear of seeing reality without the mask of sentiment. Society teaches men that endurance is virtue, that a real man absorbs pain quietly, that he proves his worth through tolerance. But philosophers knew long ago what we call tolerance. When misplaced becomes self, betrayal in disguise. Schopenhauer once wrote, "Compassion is the basis of morality, but even compassion, when given without discernment, can destroy the soul it was meant to elevate." The wise man learns that forgiveness is not always holy, because forgiveness, when undeserved, is not a bridge. It's a chain. It ties you to a version of someone who no longer exists. And every time you excuse what was meant to awaken you delay the lesson life is trying to teach. It's not about revenge. It's about recognition. Recognizing that some acts don't deserve another chance, because they were never accidents. They were choices, and choice reveals character more than words ever could. True strength is not in how much you can take. It's in how much truth you can face without running from it. Men have been conditioned to see forgiveness as a test of moral purity, as if the higher path always means letting go. But sometimes the higher path means walking away with clarity instead of bitterness. Nature said, "Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth because they don't want their illusions destroyed." That's the real war. Not between man and woman, but between truth and illusion. Forgiveness has its place, but not when it silences the voice inside you screaming, "This isn't love anymore." And when that realization dawns, when you see that forgiveness without boundaries only feeds betrayal, you stop seeking peace through her redemption and start finding it through your own awakening. Here's the truth most men never see until it's too late. You were never meant to save her. You were meant to see her. See who she becomes when the mask falls. See who you become when your peace is tested. Love in its purest form reveals character, not fantasy. And betrayal strips away everything unreal. You thought forgiveness would fix her, but forgiveness was never the medicine. It was the mirror. The illusion was believing that love conquers all. Reality is harsher. Love doesn't fix what truth exposes. She crossed a line, not because she was lost, but because she knew you'd still be there when she returned. That's the quiet cruelty of it, not the act itself, but the certainty that you'd stay. And that's where men awaken. In the silence after betrayal, when the noise of excuses finally dies, you start to see how loyalty, when blind, is just another form of weakness. You see how peace doesn't come from holding on. It comes from letting truth burn away the lies. Forgiveness without consequence isn't love. It's submission. It tells the world that your pain can be ignored. The awakening begins the moment you stop asking, "Why did she do it?" and start asking, "Why did I allow it?" That shift, that single moment of clarity is the birth of power. Because once you stop waiting for her apology, you start hearing your own voice again. The voice that says, "I am not defined by her loyalty. I am defined by what I tolerate." The truth is simple. Not every story deserves a second chapter. Some endings are sacred. They exist to free you, not to fix them. And when that realization lands, when the fog lifts and you see clearly, you don't feel anger anymore. You feel distance, peaceful distance, because you finally understand some betrayals don't destroy you. They reveal the part of you that can never be betrayed again. Freedom doesn't begin when she leaves. It begins when you stop living in reaction to her absence. The real healing isn't forgetting her. It's remembering yourself. You start by reclaiming what betrayal took from you. Your focus, your discipline, your direction. Because heartbreak isn't just emotional, and it's spiritual theft. It steals your center. It pulls your mind into endless replay. The what ifs, the maybe if I had, the she used to be. But clarity comes when you stop trying to rewrite what's already written. When you stop chasing closure in people who benefit from your confusion. Peace, brother, is not something you find. It's something you build stone by stone, decision by decision. Every morning you wake up and refuse to dwell. You reclaim one brick of your foundation. Every time you walk away from the urge to text her, you reinforce your walls. Every time you choose silence over revenge, you rise above the cycle that trapped you. That's sovereignty. The quiet power of owning your energy again. You don't need to forgive to heal. You need to understand forgiveness is optional. Awareness is not. Once you see clearly, you can't unsee. You start recognizing patterns, how chaos disguised itself as passion, how manipulation wore the mask of care. And with that awareness, you stop attracting the same pain in different faces. You become the man who doesn't chase peace. He embodies it. Because now you know love is not proved through suffering. It's proved through standards. You learn to protect your mind like a sacred space, to guard your attention the way you once guarded her emotions. And in that discipline, you find something she never could give you: wholeness. Breaking free isn't walking away. It's walking back to yourself. Because in the end, healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before you forgot your worth. In the end, betrayal doesn't destroy you. It reveals you. It strips away illusions, exposes weakness, and forces truth to stand naked in front of you. And that truth, though it burns, is the beginning of power. Because a man who has seen the limits of loyalty can never again live blind. He becomes sharper, quieter, more deliberate. He no longer mistakes kindness for access or tolerance for love. He stops trying to fix what chooses to stay broken. He learns that peace doesn't come from being understood. It comes from understanding himself. That's the shift, from being driven by pain to being defined by purpose. You see, forgiveness isn't always noble. Sometimes it's just another name for self-abandonment. There are lines that once crossed rewrite the story forever. And the strength isn't in pretending it didn't happen. It's in refusing to live as if it never mattered. So walk away clean. Not bitter, not broken, just done. Let her betrayal be the mirror that shows you where you gave too much of yourself. And let it also be the lesson that next time your love will not be blind. It will be balanced, rooted in respect. Because the world doesn't need more angry men. It needs awake men. Men who carry scars with wisdom. Men who rebuild in silence without losing their soul. And if this message speaks to something in you, then maybe this is where your rebuilding begins. Not in revenge, not in regret, but in remembering who you are when the noise finally fades. Because once a man learns to protect his peace, he becomes untouchable. And that, brother, is the kind of forgiveness no one can take from